It's called the Corrections Corporation of America, also known as the Prisoner Industrial Complex. This is Tyrone Bowman live. Tonight in this video, I'm going to be talking about prisons for profit. Yeah, you heard me. Prisons for profit. If there was no such thing as people who were locked up in prison, and justifiably so for some who have committed heinous crimes of every kind. And then there are those who are what the society will call non-offenders. They are punished just as harshly and even more harshly than those many times who have committed harsh crimes. And who are disproportionately affected the most? Black people. Oh yes. The prison industrial complex is fueled, abated, and operated through prisoners that are locked away in cages. And these states are making millions upon millions and even billions of dollars. And one of the main reasons why it's happening, it's because if prisons don't stay full, then those who work for the so-called Department of Corrections or the DLC, they don't have jobs. In order for them to have a job as a so-called correctional officer, they have to have somebody there to lord over. According to the Constitution of the United States, the 13th Amendment states, and I read, it's supposed to be about the abolition of slavery. The 13th Amendment was proposed on January 31, 1865, and ratified on December 6, 1865. Section 1, quote, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Subsection number 2, Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation, quote unquote. I found a video that I'm going to play for you in a couple of seconds here. It's entitled Alabama is generating billions by trapping people in prison. And if you think that parole boards are there to help those who are supposed to be rehabilitated or ready to transition back into society, if you think that they're there to help them, no, they're not. They're there to hurt them. So Alabama's Republican governor is one of the cruelest and harshest individuals to ever occupy the seat of the governorcy. And she is making sure that this dubious system of corruption continues to exist. That's why I keep trying to tell you all over and over again, you can vote for Donald Trump if you want to. And you can put him back in power if you want to. And what you're going to find out happening, you're going to wake up the day after, and you're going to wish you had not. Because all these people do is take care of themselves. Check out this video, and I will be back with my personal comments after the video has ended. Some may like it, some may not, but it's not going to stop me from doing my job.
Well, a lot of people are calling it modern slavery. Does that feel right?
I was just about to say, that's slavery. That's slavery. You took away the whips, but you put the paperwork. Took away the masters and you put them in uniform. Same difference. Same difference.
It kind of appears that there is a coordinated system in order to protect the labor that's created by the prison system.
Walk into a McDonald's in Alabama, and the worker flipping your McDouble could be an incarcerated person.
It's a sad situation of where they getting rich off of us.
The Alabama Department of Corrections farms out incarcerated people to work at hundreds of private companies and government agencies across the state.
McDonald's, Burger King, Golden Corral, Wendy's. They got a Wendy's contract right now. State Trooper's office.
They'll send everybody everywhere.
They'll send you everywhere. Yes, the parole office.
And even though ADOC trusts these incarcerated people to leave prison every day and work alongside the general public, many of them are still denied the chance at real freedom.
I work for y'all, but when I come off of parole, you deny me. Why would you deny me? Because I got free. Because you're getting free service.
This is a story about corporations and the state of Alabama exploiting prison labor and the coercive policies they use to keep its citizens trapped in servitude.
It doesn't work. It's a terrible system.
If you're wondering how any of this is even legal, well, it might not be. That's what we went to Alabama to figure out. So yeah, could you just describe like how long you worked here and
I was here 18 months. I ran a kitchen by myself from 8 to 5 every Thursday, Tuesday through Thursday.
wow,
Yeah.
that sounds like hard work.
It was.
Elizabeth Thomas was in the Alabama Work Release Program for 5 of her 15 years in prison. So they had a combination of incarcerated people and free world people.
Yes.
Did you feel like there was a difference how they treated?
Oh, most definitely. We worked longer hours.
Make the work release work over, work extra days, don't want to give you off days. Like, no, I got to eat my health. I have to get rest. You know what I'm saying? I'm not a machine. But that's how they look at you, like.
This is Quincy Sanders. During his nearly 17 years in prison, he worked at several restaurants, a lumber yard, and McDonald's.
Like, working a real job and trying to be incarcerated is a very hard experience. You have to be mind strong, really.
Alabama has one of the most overcrowded and deadly prison systems in the United States. Even the Justice Department found conditions there to be unconstitutional. In 2023, almost a person a day died in Alabama prisons, which is almost 5 times the national average.
Or they might get beat to death. People beating folks with sticks. They breaking broomsticks, making little billy clubs. People in there stabbing each other. People in there doing drugs. People in there almost about to die. They're not giving you no nursing assistance. The nurse probably get there, you probably be dead.
But ADOC offers people in prison with nonviolent misdemeanor convictions a potentially life-saving deal. If they join the work release program, they get to live in special facilities that are generally much less dangerous than regular prisons. They spend their days working in the free world without prison supervision, and they can earn 72-hour passes to visit their families at home.
If you go out here and you do the right thing, you get to elevate, you get to grow, you get out of this facility. But what you didn't tell me is that you finna get all my money. That's what they didn't tell you.
The state takes a 40% cut of every incarcerated.
Now listen. I want you to listen specifically as to what the state of Alabama does. Under the governance of the parole board and under the governance of its Republican governor. And some of you with your snide remarks, you may think this is a joke until it happens to you or until it happens to somebody in your family. And then when it happens to somebody you know, then it's an entirely different ball game. You want somebody to hurry up and do something then. And as for these politicians getting these sweetheart deals, they're not going to the regular prisons that regular people go to. They're going to what I call Camp Cupcake. They still have a lot of freedom. They can basically do whatever they want to do. They can go wherever they want to go. There are no harsh penalties attached to them. They don't get sanctioned the way everyday inmates do. I know how this system works because I've been on the inside. And that's the reason why I decided to take my behind to school and learn and study and become a lawyer. Why? To advocate and to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. So you can't tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about. I've seen so-called guards lie, cheat, steal, have sex with inmates, and take stuff home to their family members. They do it every single day. How do you think that drugs get into prisons? Because the corrupt prison cops bring them in there. How do you think burner phones get into the prisons? Because they bring them in there. Many of them, I'm not saying all, because you have some decent people who work within the Department of Corrections, whatever they want to call it. There's nothing corrective about it. But then you got that rogue group that lie, cheat, steal, they're corrupt, and they break every law known to God and man under the guise of call themselves a good CO. Many of them gonna find themselves waking up in hell.
Workers' wages off the top, before taxes, plus an additional $5 a day for van rides to and from work, $15 a month for laundry, and then any restitution and court fees.
If your check is $636, you might see two something out of that. And that's every 2 weeks. And you done work 80 hours and only seen $200. Like it makes you lose motivation, because you know money motivates people, especially working. So it kind of makes you lose motivation.
One estimate calculated that the state of Alabama enjoys a benefit of more than $450 million a year off of prison labor.
And it's slavery all the way around the board, just slavery.
And unlike free world workers, incarcerated workers can't just get a shift covered or quit.
ADOC has a list of rules that all incarcerated people are expected to abide by. Rules like don't have contraband, be in your bunk at the required time, and rules like don't refuse to work. That's a rule on the books.
CJ Sandley is one of the attorneys behind a recent lawsuit filed against ADOC.
The range of punishments folks can face if they get written up for refusing to work includes solitary confinement, losing access to phones, tablets, visitation, access to their families and loved ones for like 30 days, 60 days, being required to do more work inside the prison walls for free under threat of punishment.
I want to talk to my family. I want to be a part of my family, and you're telling me that if I don't go and do what you want me to do at these jobs, work as hard as they want me to do, if they need me 7 days, you want me to go there 7 days. If they need me 80 hours, you want me to work 80 hours. If they want me to turn around and come back and do a double, you want me to get up and you want me to be available to do all this. But if I decide I'm tired, Lord forbid if we got sick.
I talked to Reginald Burrell, who was injured when an entertainment center fell on his head at the private furniture manufacturing company where he worked through ADOC. When he spoke up about it, he was fired.
And, I confronted the people about it, and they shipped me to Childersburg with extra duty, taking away my privileges, and I ended up in a landfill. I just got assaulted and mistreated at this job, and now I'm ended in a landfill working for free for a multi-million-dollar company.
One of the most valuable things in the system is whatever I can do to get out early. If a work stoppage to protect myself from being abused and to speak up for myself could subject me to sanctions, I don't have to say it, but you're going to follow whatever order you're given.
Chris England is a state representative in Alabama. He's leading the fight to reform the state's prison system.
It is a completely broken system. The folks in charge, the parole board, they don't use guidelines. There is no methodology applied to it.
Alabama has some of the lowest parole grant rates in the country.
And more than 90% of the time, hearing this answer.
Denied, 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 be denied. Parole will be denied.
If the parole board followed its own guidelines, it would grant parole in about 80% of cases. But instead, that number dropped to just 8% last year. And incarcerated people in the work release program don't fare much better.
I know that there are people at the Department of Corrections, they assess them, and then they say, you are not a threat. So much so, that you can leave here and go work. Some people actually go home for 72 hours on a weekend and are told, we trust you to the point where you do whatever you got to do. We'll see you Monday morning, 8 o'clock. That same person goes before the parole board and they say, what you did 20 years ago is so bad we can't let you out. You're a threat to public safety. but make sure you're at work tomorrow morning.
A federal lawsuit claims that 235 people in the work release program were denied parole in fiscal year 2022.
So if the system is operating as designed, what is the point of the system?
It appears like.
Stop right there. So, what incentive is there given to somebody who's in a so-called prisoner work release program if all you're going to do is continuously punish them for something that happened 10, 20, or 30 years ago? These same people who work in this system break crimes, commit crimes every day. They break laws every day. They get a slap on the wrist. They get community service. Let me tell you something. There was a senator who wrote the toughest laws against sex predators and sex offenders. This same senator was working in connection with Walsh. You know that show, America's whatever, blah, blah, garbage, garbage. And you found out that this same senator was a sexual pervert. He had over 3,500 graphic, explicit, pornographic images of young boys on his work-related computer. Did that senator go to prison? Did that senator get arrested? Did that senator get marked on Megan's Law for the rest of his life? Was that senator hurled to the streets in handcuffs? No. He quietly resigned from office and moved out of state to live his life out for the rest of his life. That's called hypocrisy. That's why that show with Adam Walsh was, or whatever the man's name, John Walsh, was taken off of television because of crap like that. Remember To Catch a Predator? When that show was on television, where they entrap people, etc., etc., half those folk had no business going down there to begin with. So don't give me that malarkey about everybody's in prison because they deserve to be in prison. Everybody's not in prison because they deserve to be in prison. I know for a fact when I was in the county jail, there was a very prominent judge in Philadelphia whose husband was arrested for raping his own daughter. And they had him in PC or private or protective custody. It was a very prominent judge who was sitting on the bench at the time. He had private guards watching over him the entire time he was there. They dropped every charge against that pervert and let him go. And down in the state of Alabama, one of the most notorious racist states of all time, you know, things haven't changed in Alabama since George Wallace. These governors are still the same. Then you got the black lieutenant governor down in North Carolina who calls himself to be Donald Trump in black skin, and they just interrogating him and talking to him about him. Listen, he's supposed to be the pro-life candidate. He's supposed to be the pro-life candidate. And they found out that he paid for one of his girlfriends to have an abortion. They found out that he was involved in gross pornographic acts. But then he's trying to justify it. There is no justification for prison for profit. And many of your major entertainers and sports icons are deeply invested in prisons for profit. Correction Corporations of America. The prison industrial complex is real. Don't tell me it's not real. I know it's real because I know a lot of people who are still entrapped in it. And the main thing they want to do is tear up families, destroy the institution of black families, empower the black woman, make sure the black woman makes all the money, make sure she gets all the college degrees, and then teach her this garbage about she don't need a man. Then the next thing you know, the family is divided and destroyed. And then she finds herself with all these lonely women supposed to be successful, you're by yourself. because black men tired of hearing that crap.
One thing our lawsuit talks a lot about is that very clear lineage from slavery in the state to convict leasing and to what we've got now. And the punishment by the Department of Corrections is what our clients are challenging, because that's what amounts to involuntary servitude and slavery by the state.
After the Civil War, the 13th Amendment abolished slavery with a key caveat. Forced labor was still allowed for people convicted of a crime, and the states adopted a copycat of this federal amendment. But here's the thing. In 2022, Alabamians made a historic vote to remove this exception.
The state has a new constitution. Voters overwhelmingly agreed to make our state constitution free of racist laws and language.
However, right after the voters of the state changed the state constitution, the governor and the Department of Corrections really doubled down on the punishment for refusing to work.
So the people closed the loophole, and then the governor went around to open it up again, basically.
Yeah, that's right.
Governor Kay Ivey's executive order made encouraging or causing a work stoppage a high-level violation, on the same level as possession of a weapon, drug possession, and bribery. The order also cracked down on correctional incentive time, better known as
good time.
In some prison systems, good behavior is rewarded with what's known as good time. People can earn sentence reductions and get released from prison early.
And the state legislature even changed its good time law to increase that form of punishment for folks who refuse to work.
We're simply changing the amount of correctional incentive time or good time days that are offered. Are we increasing or are we lowering it? We are lowering them.
All of this was done on the heels of this constitutional change, and frankly, it's a brazen ignoring of the will of the voters of the state, and that's what our lawsuit is about. And so many people want to work, but they want to be paid fairly. They want to be paid a free world wage for the labor they're doing. They want to be working in safe conditions. They want to be treated fairly, and they don't want to be forced to work if they don't want to, or they can't because they're sick, or they have a doctor's appointment, or they're feeling unsafe in their work and they want to change jobs.
One of the unique things about this state, and really the country, is that things just never end, they evolve. If your prison system is full, it's primarily full of black folks, black men, and you have a racial disparity in who gets released and who doesn't. Can you imagine the optics of what that labor force looks like?
Black people account for just over a quarter of Alabama's total population, but more than 50% of the prison population. An AL.com investigation found that black men were 25% less likely to get parole than white men.
If you could take a picture of a group of men who were working convict labor decades ago and juxtapose that next to a current labor force, it would probably look the same. That's crazy.
So, what is the point of prison? Is it the creation of a cheap, controllable, and confined labor source? Or is it rehabilitation? And what does a real commitment to rehabilitation for incarcerated people actually look like?
I wish they'd strip that name off of that Alabama Department of Correction. I wish they'll take correction out of that and just say Alabama Department, because ain't no correction. Ain't no correction, ain't no structure, ain't no discipline. You discipline me to do what you want me to do, not the law. Not to come back in society and be able to live off of what you taught me. That's not what's going on. If I lived off what DOC taught me, I'd still be a criminal. Because they want that paycheck. They want me to come back in tomorrow. They want me to. Because their money keep flowing. It's no correction. We need to start correcting. We need to start loving. We need to start teaching.
As I close, I'm going to put it this way. If you think this is a game, if you think this is a joke, get caught up in the criminal justice system. Just simply be accused of committing a crime without any scintilla of evidence whatsoever. And get yourself a public pretender and a rogue prosecutor and watch them convict you with little or no circumstantial evidence. My advice to my brothers and sisters, when you come home from prison, go to a trade school. Take those skills that you learn to survive on the inside, make them become marketable. You are a valuable asset when you come back into the community, because majority of the people, they are oblivious as to how this world really works. Take your expertise, take the skills that you've learned how to do, take your survival skills, and start fulfilling your dreams before it is too late. Never surrender, never quit.